I'm Rana Al-Falaki.
I'm Bav,
and welcome to
the Nail It Podcast.
This is your place to lead better, live fully and laugh more. It's your blueprint to optimal performance. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Nail It Podcast, your place to
lead better, live fully, laugh more.
Exactly. Bav, how are you doing?
I'm good. You?
I am super duper full of energy, absolutely loving it. And I'm super excited because we've just been talking to our guest and talk about amazing energy. So shall we go straight to introductions?
Yeah, let's do it. So today we've got Kunal Thakker, who is the CEO of Tooth Club, previously worked in banking. I think he's 18/19 practices, I believe. Award-winning practices, I should say, and literally is blazing the trail in these startups and squat practices. And I believe he's starting to teach other people how to do it. So we're really excited to have him today.
We are. Welcome.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for having me on.
It's such a pleasure. It's a pleasure. And like we saw that little, anyone who's watching rather than listening still saw that little face or that little body that just gradually retreated as we mentioned all of your accolades. And yet you should be proud because it's not about you. It's about the impact you get to create with everybody else, right? The effect and impact you have on this world.
It is, but you know why? Because I think everyone sees it, all these awards, always, Kunal got this award, he got this award. It's actually, it's not. Honestly, I don't do the hard graft. It's my team that do the hard graft. And, everyone's like, oh, you're the face of Tooth Club. But actually, like, we're a hugely people business. And you know what? It's the teams that do an amazing job. And then I kind of get on here and say, yeah, I'm award winning. So I just get a little bit cringed out by it. But, it's they do a phenomenal job. And I think I have to say for them.
It comes from the top down, and so you've got to take some credit. And it is about you.
Give them, like you've just given them the credit, right? And you just say, I wouldn't be getting this award if it wasn't for my team. And you resonate in that belief, and you make sure your team know that. Then that's why you're proud. I remember when I first started winning awards for my clinic, so before I was a coach, and I was just like, I would always like, guys, this award isn't about me. We wouldn't do it without your help.
In general, I'm hugely grateful. We're in awards season, right? So I'm hugely grateful for getting the awards and being recognised. But you also see the reality of life, right? So it's great getting these awards, but you're 1 minute on stage getting these awards, and then the next minute you get home at like 11 o'clock at night, and you've got baby crying, and then you're right back down to back landing into reality, right? And so it's just kind of balancing those and being really genuine about there's some real highs and we've got to be grateful for those, but then there's also the reality of life, like I'm very normal like everyone else.
Okay, we're definitely gonna have to do some more coaching work on you so that every day feels like the high of getting an award. But on that note,
we'll get onto your story in a bit, but first things first, go on the runner.
Yes, you are on the Nail It podcast, so the first question we really have to ask you is, what is your favorite quote?
Do you know what? There's a quote that I say, "This time shall pass," and I don't know who said it, right? Okay, I'm not quite sure, but Christopher Kirk, it was one of the things that he said in one of like these little snippets you get on Instagram, and it really made me think, because this time shall pass. So when you're on the highs and you've got your awards or everything's going really well, the business is doing really well, you've got to remain humble. And I feel like that quote always keeps me quite humble, because do you know what? This could change. Be grateful in the moment, appreciate it, but this time will pass, and you'll go into a different venture. And equally, when times are tough and things are difficult, it gives me hope, because when I'm feeling like, oh my God, what am I doing? Am I doing the right thing? Actually, this time will pass. So trust the process, we'll get through it. So I feel like that quote for me is really important. It's keeping you humble, but at the same time, it gives you hope when you need it as well.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And actually, I'm used to hearing that quote to help people through hard times, right? When you're going through a really hard time, this soon shall pass, or too shall pass. So I love the way you put that twist on it and actually see the positive side of it as well. Actually make the most of the magic moments, because as you said, it's not all about standing on stage and getting an award. So
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a really important one, right? And it's when we go on the growth journey for us at Tooth Club, right, there's loads of highs and lows. And I think all over my LinkedIn, you'll always see on my Instagram, you'll see the highs, not necessarily the lows. But we're like every other business, we have our challenges. And I always think it's all about how we get through those challenges and how we deal with those challenges. And I'm hugely spiritual as well. So I kind of always think that when you think the world's just crashed, it's because there's something else good that's going to come. And I'm a firm believer that the crashes feel hard, right? They feel that, when something doesn't land how you planned for it to land, it can be difficult.
Okay, so sorry, can you just say that quote one more time? Is it a full quote?
It literally is. The quote that I look at is "This time shall pass."
This time shall pass. Okay.
Yeah, this time shall pass. So whatever it is, in the highs, stay humble because this time will pass. But also
Yeah.
be grateful whilst you've got this time. And then in the down times, this time will pass. Be hopeful, be positive. You'll get through it.
Yeah. So you're also talking about, the image that came to my mind when you said that is I don't know why I was ended up thinking about food, but you crack an egg, right? Okay, like you've got this egg. I mean, like this egg, I know Bavin's always laughing at me. You've got this amazing egg. I mean, actually, if you think about like how phenomenal an egg actually is, I don't know if you've actually really held an egg and marveled at the science and the amazingness behind it and the way it needs to break in the exact way and the strength, how it like breeds this cute little chick or bird or whatever it is that's in there. But anyway, so it's breeding something, right? It's breeding something. There's something, there is life growing inside of this. But the only way it's going to get out is to crack it open. And that crack is probably going to hurt. It's going to break the shell, but look at the beauty and the potential that is inside.
Yeah.
You were wondering where I was going with that.
You know what? I really was. I don't think I can ever.
You're going to make
an
an omelette or something. No, not quite food.
You in the end, didn't I? You were like, yeah, that's
yeah, I got it. Yeah, and do you know what? I think there's a lot of truth in that, right? I think to get something good, you've got to go through a few hard cracks as well.
Yeah, and you don't know the good if you haven't experienced the bad. You don't know the happy if you haven't experienced the sad. Now, that's not to say we can't actually be truly. I don't talk about happy is actually a transient state, and I write a lot about this in my book. I talk about optimal performance, and one part is I call it happiness, but actually it's a transient state. What you really want is a state of joy and peace inside, so that actually when the hard times still come, you still are able to maintain that peace and joy because you're so secure and deep inside for who you are as a person, what your purpose is here in this life, and what it is you're trying to achieve.
100%. And you've got to have trust in the universe, right? You've got to have, some people see it as God, others see it as universe, and other people think I'm absolutely nuts. But I always trust, trust the universe, trust that something good's going to come. And I think there's a lot of hope in that. And
On that note, then, Kunal, go on then. So, why don't you give us a little bit of background story, where you're coming from, and how you got into dentistry?
Absolutely. So, as you mentioned, I started off as a banker. So, I actually, let me take you all the way back. So, I actually grew up in a video shop. My parents used to, a bit like Blockbusters, right? Some people ain't even going to know what that is, but a bit like Blockbusters.
I remember those.
But an Indian video shop version. And we had a couple of news agents as well. And my parents worked blooming hard, but I worked really hard. Like every summer holiday, or if there was a film launch, right? Yeah, we'd be up labeling all the films, right? And we just got stuck into the family business, my sister and I. So we always saw that graft. And I'd worked in the shop and I'd loved selling. I just love it. I find it such a people experience. I've always loved it. And then grew up in the shop, knew the hard graft. I came from an Indian family where you could not fail. You can't fail your GCSEs. Just not a given, right? Didn't have tutors or any of the privileges my children have, but you just knew you couldn't come home with bad grades. Did well in my GCSEs, did really well in my GCSEs. And then my dad's like, oh, you need to go and be a doctor. You need to do biology, chemistry, and maths. And I was just like, oh my God. And I did it. Good Indian boy, went and did it. And I failed my first year of my A-levels and I came home with really bad grades. And it was the most miserable year of my life. I was really overweight. And I just hated it and I failed and I had to retake the year. So I was not only a failure at home, like I don't think my dad spoke to me for about 3 days because he was so shocked. My friends were all going on into second year of A-levels and I had to resit my A-levels. So, and my dad's like, just redo them again. One more year, you'll pass, you'll become a doctor. It's like, no, blimmin', where am I doing this again? I did accounts, business, and drama, right? Can you imagine Indian family drama, right? And so I did that, and I got really good A levels, and but I kind of dictated my own pathway in what I was going to do, and stop. My first attempt to stop being a people pleaser was that moment, and then I got my uni offers, and I had King's, I had maths and business or something like that, and everyone's like, "Oh, you've got to take King's." It's like, no, I'm not taking King's. No offense to guys being at King's, like, amazing uni, but I'm not doing King's. I'm doing what I want to do, and I went to Westminster, which isn't classed as a good a uni as King's, and I went on to I did Westminster. And my parents were really upset I didn't take King's. Because it's such a good name, but I did what I wanted to do, and I did. I did well. I did really well at Westminster, and I basically landed about 9 internships with investment banks, and I got a job in investment banking. Then I was golden child because, oh my God, it was a new buzzword, right? Being a doctor was still quite attractive, but investment banking was a new thing. And then I was golden child again. But it taught me I needed to go on my own journey, and I needed to stand up for what I believed in. So yeah, and then did that, and I did an internship, and then I got a job at Goldman Sachs, and I did that for 10 years. I loved it. Really, really good corporate career. I wish I'd left 5 years earlier. Being honest with you, but we did 10 years there, learned everything about banking, how good corporates work, how you scale up a business. And I had a little side hustle with a friend of mine. My best friend's wife wanted a dental practice, so we bought a dental practice, learned everything. Really, really lucky to have a good team around me, taught me everything about dental. And we sold that in 2019. And then 2020, I gave up banking. And everyone said to me, "You can't give up banking, you can't give up a good job." I was like, "No, no, I'm giving up banking." And then COVID happened. And my parents were like, "We told you shouldn't have given up a job in banking, right? You need to go back to banking." I was like, "No, I'm gonna do this." And I set up Tooth Club. And 5 years later, we're from zero practices to 18 today, and number 19 in build. And I love dentistry.
Wow.
Everything about it.
Why?
Do you know, I make a difference to real people. Like when I was in banking, I was making rich people richer. I was shuffling paper from one place to another. And whereas here, there's a real purpose, right? And I found this real purpose when I had my little practice, because I was really involved in the 3 practices that we had. And that practice, right, yeah, there was a guy in a market store, and we helped him get implants. At the time, not a lot of companies, everyone does finance now. In fact, this was in the really early days, and we were one of the first ones to offer finance, and it meant he could split the cost of his treatment. And he had dental implants, and this guy in 8 years hadn't eaten food. He was living on soups, living on blended. He wouldn't go out for dinners, and he owned a market stall. So what he used to do, so after I did this, right, yeah, he came in with a box of clothes, right, for my wife, right? And I was like, "Oh wow, thank you so much." And I'm not kidding you, every month, every time he got a new supply of clothes in, he'd come in because he was just so grateful. And things like that, like, really, really touch, because it's real, right? You've made an impact to real people. And I'm not a dentist, I'm not a clinician, but I think I did my little bit by giving him access to dentistry and a new smile. And it's the lifestyle change that makes for people that I love. And even now, even in Tooth Club today, the concept of Tooth Club comes from my own anxieties of going to the dentist. Absolutely hated it. Horrible smell, horrible environment, bulldog reception, the horrible drilling sound. It's awful. And when you come into a Tooth Club practice, we've tried to eliminate as much as possible all of that kind of stuff. So you've got your headset, you've got your beverage, they don't look and feel like dental clinics. And we don't always get it right. I'm going to be really honest, we don't always get it right, but we blimmin' try and we strive. We really work hard to try and get it right. And I think there's been so many good reviews. That there's one on Google where there's a 70-year-old lady, patient of ours, right, who had a root canal with a headset on whilst watching her favourite episode of The Crown. And I just love that review so much, because she was scared of the dentist, and we gave her a really nice experience. So and it's those real stories for me that make it worthwhile.
So there
Sorry,
are
I've
2.
rambled on there.
No, ramble away. It's a really interesting stories, but there are 2, and I mean, Bhavin and I, I'm sure, like, they're heartfelt to us as well, right? Because as myself as a specialist periodontist and Bhavin implant dentist, like, we are that cutting edge of when people are just so desperate, that final bit of difference you make to their lives. I mean, that's certainly what keeps me going in clinical dentistry now.
Yeah.
Say, why are you still doing it when you're doing all this other stuff? It's like, just feeds me in this other way. But there are two kind of themes I heard there. One was in your story, and there was a repetition there very much about, I'm going to do it my way. I'm going to accept failure, and actually I'm going to do it my way, because at the end of the day, it's my life, and I know what's right for me, which is a really, really powerful theme. And I'd love to dive deeper into you understanding how you got there, because obviously so often that's what we have to train and coach people on, because they have that doubt. The other theme, just to touch on, was very much what you said about well, I have a question, because obviously you were investment banking and then in dentistry. So my question is, I'm just wondering, so maybe it isn't a question, it's just a thought. I'm wondering if you would be this enthusiastic about dentistry if you were actually a dentist and had spent that 15 years in banking actually being a clinician. You know where I'm going with this, Bav.
Yeah, I was going to say that because obviously I think it's a topic we've spoken about recently as well. Is I don't think dentists enough take a step back and look at the effect they're having on the people around them, on the patients they have, and things that they do. They just see it as a procedure, get the procedure done, get them out of the chair, get the next one in, but they don't actually see the benefits of that procedure. They see it as more of a trade and something that they're doing hands-on and getting paid, and then they see the financial reward, but they don't see that purpose reward and the effect that they're having on other people's lives and the confidence. So it's always good to check back in on patients and say to them, look, how has this changed your life? And take a little bit of recognition and go, actually, do you know what? It's made a massive impact, and that's because of what we've done.
Yeah,
I think dentists have it hard. Sorry, Ron.
Yeah, but just to say, I think it's a little bit of a generalization, Bav, but I think it's that the intention and the well-meaning is there, but there's so much overwhelm, there's so much regulation, there's so much busyness as opposed to proper business. That they don't get the chance to do.
That's it. Well, so I mean, you sort of firefighting,
right?
No, it's not that you don't want to. It's just that it becomes you get numb to it, don't you? Really, you just get on with it, and you're like I said, medical legally, you're writing your notes up. You'd rather spend 5 more minutes writing notes up than actually look at a patient and go, do you know what? Is there anything else? Is there anything else that I can do for you? You're like, okay, let me write notes up. I need to get the next patient in, and you don't get that time to actually take a step back.
Yeah, and do you know, I see it a little bit differently for dentists, right? I feel like it's a really hard profession, actually. You're expected to be intellectually incredibly smart, right? Yeah. You're expected to constantly study and do courses. I don't know any dentists that don't spend an absolute fortune in continuous education, kind of trying to upskill themselves. None of mine are like that. They are all kind of constantly spending. And these courses aren't cheap. You're then in surgery. You're worried about being sued, right? Yeah. You're worried about being struck off by the GDC, right? Yeah. You know, you're worried if like you've got the same nurse that you've always had, right? Yeah. And going to understand you. And then also you're dealing with the general public. You do not know the reaction of that patient in front of you, right? So you could be the best technical clinician in the person's mouth, but you've got so much against you and so much pressure. And you know, and I think sometimes people don't remember that. And I think as well, the clinical, this is a non-dentist, by the way, the way that I see this, right? Yeah, you know, someone that does root canals isn't going to be as good as composite bonding and vice versa. The skill set seems to be different. The education around it seems to be different. But you are expected as a general dentist to be able to do the most beautiful fillings as well as do a full RCT, right? And God help you if you're in the NHS, right? Yeah, you're going to need to do it in 45 minutes or whatever the timescales are now. It's a lot of pressure. And actually a lot of professions don't have that. I mean, there are some, but a lot of them don't have that same level of immediate pressure of having a human in front of you where you've got to deliver outstanding every single time.
And the public don't see it. So when I think it was a few months ago, I was interviewed by the BBC radio, and in the end we were on 16 BBC radio channels, and every single host could not understand how is dentistry really that stressful? I don't get it. I can't believe these stats. And I would explain all these different scenarios for because we're human beings, for heaven's sake. It's like you get the award and then you go home to the screaming baby.
Well, yeah, or if you walked in and had a Barney with your missus, right? Yeah, you can't come in and have a bad day in the chair in someone's mouth.
Right?
That's the truth.
I tell you, you do the best perio those days. My patients used to say, "You haven't had an argument with your husband today, have you?" And I'm like, "Oh, you probably want me to, because then I'm really gonna go for it."
No, you have to put on a show. right? And that's the way I describe it, is that you have to put on your face, your mask, your actual mask as well as your mask, and you've got to be this person they want you to be. And you've got to remember, patients are anxious. So again, it's a recipe for disaster, because when people are anxious, they don't act themselves either. And so they're always going to be defensive. They're always going to be short with you. There's not many professions that you can walk into the surgery and go, I don't like you. There's not many professions that have to take down. We've got to take it on the chin. I turn it into humor and I go, well, I don't like patients either. And we laugh about it. It breaks a bit of barriers, humor like that. But you have to establish a rapport, trust, and then you're doing very intricate things in a patient that is very sensitive. And as I say, it's very stressful.
And I think that's where the NHS is really good. And I always advise the junior dentists to do an element of NHS, and we don't offer much NHS. We've got a very tiny bit, because do you know what? That the NHS is such a good training ground. Not clinically, I'm sure you guys are better judging at that. But actually, when you day in and day out have to go in and put yourself in different situations with people from all walks of life, I think it makes you a better clinician, actually, because most patients don't know how beautiful that filling is that you've done, or that composite. They don't know. They know how you made them feel. And it's often about energy. It's about sometimes what you don't say as opposed to what you do say. And I think those things are really, really important.
Yeah, it's awful. I mean, just to finish on the mask, which anyone listening to this will understand, that is, when you are in any service industry, you could be living, your life could be a living hell at that minute in time. And unfortunately for dentistry, usually you've shown up because you can't afford to take a day off work, or you're so professional that you don't want those patients to suffer
let them down.
and have to wait months, right? I mean, so like my most ridiculous one was giving birth to a dead baby, and then I went to work. It was on like New Year's Day, and then the third, then there was a bank holiday, and the 3rd of January I was at work smiling my head off to patients and with my team, obviously living a massive living hell, but such is the mask that we can sometimes wear, and it's needing to recognize that mask, isn't it, Bav? Which is obviously it's one of the nail it components, authenticity, and understanding really what true authenticity is. It isn't just about honesty and trust. It is about being willing in some way to be prepared to show your vulnerability. Because when a patient comes in, it's all, as far as they're concerned, a lot of the time it's all about them, and your life could be a living hell. Actually, when you build those relationships and that rapport, I get patients so often saying, well, how are you? Sorry, it's really selfish of me. How are you actually? So just to finish.
No, it's really important. It's really important because I think you've got to let your guard down, because you're asking them very personal questions and you're expecting them to be upfront and honest with you. And the least you could do is be honest. I talk about my kids all the time, or my holiday, or whatever it is. Just let them into your life. Let them see that you're human. You're not a robot. You're not this pain-inflicting machine. You are a person, and they're a person, and you're there to help them. And I think that relationship is much better.
Well, if you're having a bad day and someone says, how are you? Like, to mask that point, I think is incredibly difficult.
Yeah. I think that to a point, you can't say that because then they're not going to trust you to do that procedure. I understand that there's a human aspect to it, but to a point, I think you've got to let them in and go, do you know what, actually, I was so late this morning, my train wasn't working, my car's broken down. I think things like that. I think they realised, that's normal, that's human, but it's not going to affect your ability to do the procedure on them.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's change tack and go back to my other question, because I love that. And this comes in line with, I know you talked about, you have set up squats, you've always done your own thing, you're clearly striving for what you believe in. And that for me is very much a disruptor mentality, which I completely relate to, because I don't like the norm. And who says everything always has to be done this way? Let's shake it up a bit and make the world better. So what gave you those roots and those foundations? Because clearly it wasn't obviously your parents, because they wanted you to do
they want stability. They wanted you to work in the NHS.
Do you know, probably just always been a bit of a rebel. But I actually put out a post on LinkedIn a few weeks ago, something that I saw a video and it kind of triggered. So I've got 2 kids that are autistic. 2 out of my 4 are autistic, high functioning, but they're autistic. So they see the world really, really differently. They just see it they're very literal. They see, they'll look at something and just they'll see a picture. I'd see a man and they'd see a bird or something along that. They just see the world differently. And we've gone on a journey to understand them. My daughter has masked it. She hid it for ages. And then we kind of, but then my son was literally all out there. Like you could just tell, quite a fiery character, quite feisty, and but but she kind of internalized it, he externalized it, and that's what was our trigger. And then we got both of them tested, and both of them are autistic. Great, because they got a label. We know how to work with them. Everyone around them knows how, and it's not big things, right? But it's very small tweaks that we need to do with them. So that's worked really well. So then there's a genetic link between the children and you being autistic. So I was like, am I autistic? My wife said, why don't you get tested? And I was like, okay, I'll go and get tested. And I haven't done it because I don't want the label. Okay. But the reality is, and I don't want the label, I don't know, I haven't quite discovered why I don't want the label yet. I'm kind of just happy being me. I'm happy being me. And that's why I've not got the label. But I see the world really differently. And there's often times where my team will come and say, oh, I've got this problem. And I'm like, oh, easy, just do this. They're like, oh, we didn't even think of that. And it's just, I've got this way of problem solving, but equally I've got my own challenges as well. But I've got in certain situations, just see the world differently. And so I think for me, that has been one thing. I think my brain is wired a little bit differently. And then, the other thing is I passionately believe in my core, to the point it really hurts, but yeah, my childhood experience of going to the dentist was so bad, so bad. I was scared. I shake in the chair today, yeah, and I truly believe no one should ever go to the dentist feeling the way I did as a child. And you'd get those little postcards through the door. I'd literally wait every single day, right, of my childhood. I'd be the first one to the post to get the little pink slips. I'd tear it up. So my mum wouldn't see it. And I was having ortho treatment, and they could have done something to my jaw, so I didn't need a Bimax surgery. But I tore it all up because I hated it. And I hated the putty in your mouth. It used to make me gag.
Impressions.
And this is why as much as possible, we scan all of our patients. We don't use putty and wash. This is a real experience, and I'm still shaking this chair today. So that real passion comes in. We've got to do dentistry differently. I feel like I can make an impact in doing dentistry different. And I'm not going to open 10 million squats and Tooth Club's going to be the only brand on the street. But what I feel we are partly shaping and influencing other dentists to open their practices or renovate their practices to be nicer. So it's a nicer experience for patients. So I really, in my gut, feel that. And whether it's disruption, whatever the right terminology is, I genuinely want to change the way dentistry is done so that no child, no adult goes to the dentist being scared again. And I ended up at the age of 30, had Bimax surgery, and I had both jaws broken. I had 3 years of ortho, and honestly, it's the worst thing. And I had a brilliant consultant. I went private, had the best kind of private care, but it's an awful experience, and it could have all been avoided if I'd just seen the orthodontist when I was 11. So
That's a story, isn't it? That's a story and a half. Nice. So okay. So what is your ultimate goal? What do you want to do?
Yeah. So do you know? So for me at Tooth Club, the idea is we are going to do we call them greenfields or squat practices, set up our own practices, high street locations, with really big branding, really stick to the core essence of what Tooth Club is about, which is a real, doesn't look and feel like a dentist, but very clinically safe. By the way, can I just add, I'm not a dentist, but I've got a clinical director. Every practice has a clinical lead to make sure that we are operating. I'm more worried about the clinical stuff because I don't understand it, and I'm more cautious clinically than I think if I would be if I was a dentist. So that's really, really important. But creating a really good culture in the business is so important as well. I see so many businesses, not just dental, so many businesses out there that lose good talent because the culture isn't right. And most people have a nice, pretty little poster up on the wall. Like, no, you've got to live and breathe that stuff every single day. And when times are hard, right, yeah, you've got to live and breathe it. You've got to double down 100 times that those core values, because everyone's watching and everyone wants it. And when you live and breathe that culture and those values, it resonates through the business. And during our hardest times at Tooth Club, I look at my culture and values and say, are we living and breathing these? And if we're not, we pivot. But most often those are kind of our guiding principles. So I really want to scale this out. We've got a really, really good team now. We know the processes, we've got a good team. So it's just kind of replicating it across. But I want to make sure service levels stay high. And this is one of my biggest challenges in the businesses. How do I ensure we give a consistent level of service across the group as we scale up? There's lots of things that we do to kind of do it. We police it, we've centralized our calls. But, it's a challenge. The service sector in the UK, you go into a restaurant, right? The kinds of service you get, and it's that classic thing, someone's got a problem at home, they bring it to the front desk, and don't always put the mask on, but then actually, there's a time and place where we want you to take the mask off, be real, be genuine, let's help you through your problems. But equally, we've got a job to do with our patients. It's getting that balance right, and you can't systemize everything. There's elements that you've got to be human about. It's getting that balance.
Yeah, so this is what I call like the need for human due diligence then when you're recruiting, right? So
Yes.
because it's all very well having, like you're going to come into this team and these are our values. But
Yeah.
how do you need to have those business skills? You need to have those entrepreneurial skills, those communication skills, influence, persuasion, real leadership skills to be able to allow those people to firstly understand what those values are and to be able to integrate them fully into themselves as well. So of course, part of it is who you employ, right? Does this person resonate with me? And maybe this person hasn't shown up brilliantly today, but do they actually have that potential? And actually, and how you can actually measure that. You can do these different assessments that actually measure that person's potential. So not just their personality type, but what is their attitude and what is their behavior? It's all that, energy, leadership. And so how is that person actually really showing up? Because if you do want to standardize it, you're absolutely right. Sometimes it's kind of like, look, I appreciate that you're having issues and I'm very sorry. So we need those empathy skills. But when we're at work, we need to be at work because we're also serving other people. And again, this all comes from leadership training. It all comes from resilience and building your characters so that actually I can compartmentalize, I can dissociate, I can leave that on the table so that I can show up at my very best. And I know that I'm also working in a really good supportive that's going to allow me to do that.
And Ryan, you make a really good point. These skills are leadership, right? And a lot of my training at Goldman's was around leadership, right? There's certain elements I learned I would never bring into dentistry, and there's other elements that have been hugely beneficial. But dentists don't get taught this. All right. So, so in some ways it's easier for me because I've had the training, I've had the coaching. Go and ask me to do an extraction, I wouldn't know where to start. I wouldn't even know what to set up, right? Being honest with you. But it's so the dentists don't necessarily have these skills. One thing for us is we hire very, very selectively. Okay. And we just don't hire bad people. And if we hire bad people, they get exited, like they stick out like a sore thumb and they get exited. And there's an example where I had, this was one practice I bought, never again, right? An acquisition I did, the associate stayed on and he was grossing about $500,000 a year for me. And he was slamming doors in the nurse's face, right? Happened once, happened twice, third time, I was like, absolutely not. And we exited him, right? Our revenue dropped. But best decision I ever made because we're now back up again, right? But you know what? People just realize that sort of behavior, no matter how good you are clinically, kind of commercially, there's just no space for you at Tooth Club. And there's these individuals that get, if they let in, right, and we're really careful about who we let in, but when we do let them in, they get picked up really carefully. And as we scale this business, one of the things I worry the most about or lose sleep about is losing our culture.
So,
I guess that's
but
easier.
you shouldn't be losing sleep over it because you resonate it and you should have a plan in place already to make sure that culture gets maintained, right? You've already said the way you're recruiting.
Absolutely. But
So
Rana,
there's
back in the
nothing to
day,
sleep over. You
I'd
make
interview
sure
every
that it happens.
person. I used to interview every single person myself, right?
And you can't do that.
I can't do that now, right? So I have to put systems in place. I have to make sure my management team really get the culture. And you know what? If they're desperate for a dentist, got a role, but they don't quite fit, I need to give them the confidence that you say no. It's okay. We'll deal with the commercials. Most people will disagree with me. No, you get the money in. No, we'll deal with the commercials because that money's short term. The amount of pain they're going to cause you, right? You're not going to get the return on it, right? So let's wait. Let's hire the right person. I'm not saying we are hugely commercial as well. So it's balancing it, but we're not bringing in bad people because that then disrupts the entire team. And I think it's that. So we have systems in place to try and make sure that we interview the right people. If we all make mistakes, it happens. We pick that early and we're humble or brave enough to say, look, made a mistake. Let's pivot.
I guess it's easier for you there because you're opening squats, right? So it's a fresh start, it's a clean slate.
100%.
I think the difficulty is when you take over a practice as a, you know, as a dentist, where the majority of our listeners will be, if they're buying an existing practice, walking in on day one, it's got to be so difficult because you're there in front of this team that are already know each other, that already have politics, that already have a sense of a culture or value, and then you're trying to impose your new values on them, and it's got to make it really difficult. Have you ever experienced that? Or have you ever...
I mean, this is exactly what I did. I bought this practice. Right, we're going to tooth club you, right? The most untooth club practice you could think, right? It's on the train. It's by the train station. It's got an NHS contract. You know, patients have been coming for 30 odd years. Completely different demographic to what we're used to. And we said, no, we're going to make this into tooth club. And actually, what I felt in that journey, right? As much as the changes, there were some decisions we made which were right. Exiting that dentist, like, I'd do it 1,000 times again. But there were some things where we were asking the teams to do something that was so unfamiliar with them, right? Yeah. They were not used to, for a simple example, when the patient leaves, taking the money. Oh, that patient, I know her, she'll pay next time. You know, it was that kind of mentality. And I was like, no, I can't manage this. But, you know, we made them be so proactive about taking payments, right? Yeah. It's like, have you taken a deposit? Have you taken, you know, have they taken full payment? Have they booked their next appointment? Have you got their email address? Have you got their phone number? And, you know, in the end, we lost those people. And we lost those people because you just couldn't get that culture integration. And it was that was my pivotal moment where I said, do you know what? Greenfields are cheaper. We can make them a success. We can turn them around. You know, it takes me probably 3 months to make a squat site turn profit. Right? It doesn't take me long. It takes 3 months. Anyone else that's doing a squat, guys, it will take a little bit longer. I've just done it a few times, so I know what to do. But you know, 3 months. So that's why we went down the squat journey, and it just means we get the culture right day one. Bringing a fresh team, we spend time training them, integrating them to learn the Tooth Club way, and that's what's been real success. And our retention rates are really high as well because we've been able to follow that pattern.
Yeah, so it comes down to culture, and if you're not fortunate enough to set up a squat, or you're an associate or a therapist or a hygienist who happens to be in a practice that then gets bought, so much of it, again, it comes into leadership, the leadership that's your own personal leadership, and your ability to adapt to change is part of it. And you mentioned the word mistake, and I always flash up, nothing is a mistake, everything is a learning opportunity. So actually it's training that team. When you're looking at integrating culture, you're training them in leadership skills as well, and then to decide if there is a match or not. So on that note about leadership, we're back to nail it leadership. So we asked you to prepare one other question. So of course, nail it leadership is 6 pillars overall. It's actually 38 components where we train you in those core essential leadership skills. So needs, attitude. Are you writing it down, Bavin? We're gonna have okay, wait. I better. Okay, I think I know what it's going to be. All right. So needs, attitude, integrity, limitlessness, intuition, and tangibility. What do you feel the most important of those 6 pillars are?
Intuition, I'd say.
Intuition. You didn't think that, did you?
I think I got it wrong, Bab.
Did you think attitude?
I thought integrity.
Integrity. Okay, right. That's it. Go on then.
But he did say it was spiritual, right? So I love that. As we heard from Neil Carmichael, he said actually they're all pillars, so all of them are important. But tell us about intuition.
So intuition for me is really, really, really important. You know, when I don't trust my gut, right, and always what my gut's saying isn't necessarily the right thing. There's always, when my gut's telling me something's wrong, there's something wrong, and I need to listen, and I need to hone in on that. So for me, intuition is so important. Of course, integrity as well, right? It's one of our key pillars, integrity. But you know, for me, intuition as an entrepreneur is so important. And there's times in this business, right? I'll give you a real candid example. I came back from holiday in January, and I just had a gut feel something in the business wasn't right. And I kind of went to each pillar of my business and said, right, what's going on? And then I kind of honed in on finance, and I didn't get the right response. just didn't get the right response. My CFO at the time, I was just like, this isn't right. So tried to get into detail, purposely not being given the detail, and I brought in an external consultant to have a look at my finance department. And do you know what? The processes, the function, the people management just wasn't right. And it was my intuition that told me. No one told me, but my intuition told me. And there's just been and we've kind of changed it now, gone full circle, got a brand new team doing really well and come out the other side. But there's so many things like that where your intuition, your gut tells you something's not right. Go and hone in on it. Don't avoid it. And also there's been times where, people have tried to offer us funding options for this business, right? Yeah. And I could not tell them why I said no. I was like, my gut says no. And I'm quite confident saying my gut says no. No science, they've got guts so no. And 3 or 4 weeks later, I realized what my gut was telling me. And I think so for me in this business, intuition is super, super, super important. And I think you've got to listen to yourself. You've got to trust yourself because I don't know, as a child, I think I wasn't always brought up to have enough self-belief. And I think as I'm getting older, I'm starting to have a bit more self-belief in a humble way. And that's more about listening to yourself and what what the world's telling you or what you're thinking is right. Sorry. I don't know.
No, I love that. Well,
No,
don't
do you
say
know what? We should
sorry
have known,
because
to be fair. We should have known.
I wrote the book, right? I've
Yeah.
created the system, and intuition is massive. And I think I love it that it's become so much more recognized in leadership now, that people
Yeah.
don't think, oh, intuition, that's just some woo-woo thing. And we actually talk about how intuition is the foundation for really powerful decision making. And so that makes, in the system, it makes the North Star navigator. So that stands for like silence. We need to actually create the space to listen to the intuition when there's so much clutter, when you're so busy,
100%.
when you're so stressed, when there's too much stuff, data coming in. So you need the silence to allow the intuition. The shower and the car are fantastic ways for intuition to come in. And then
100%.
you mentioned the word trust. So you actually need to trust it. You need to trust, you need to be able to trust it, and also trust the feeling. What is the feeling trying to tell you? Is it fear or is it intuition? The A from stars stands for attached. So this is about being connected. You said you were a spiritual person, right? Do you believe in the universe? Are you religious? Whatever it is, you need to have some connection. You so often when people are discontented, it's because they are disconnected. They are disconnected from themselves. So actually you need to connect to yourself, your body, your mind, your spirit, your soul. And the R is recognition, exactly, is really recognizing the intuition. So usually intuition is something you can train. And so usually I'll say to people, actually start off with keeping an intuition journal so that you start to think, okay, this was my intuition to actually do something or not to do something, exactly as you said. And when I trusted it, this is what happened. When I didn't trust it, this is what happened. So you can start to train and take tiny steps, little small steps at a time until you're then willing to, exactly as you said, I didn't know why, but I just knew I needed to not do it. Or I knew I just went with it. And
So many times I didn't listen. So many times I didn't listen. So many times. And now I really listen. And sometimes you mentioned silence before, right? Like, we are a really fast-paced organization. This business just operates at a super fast level. We're growth. So creating that space of silence is so important, because that's where you kind of realize the nuggets of information. And sometimes I'll come off a call with someone and they've not said anything. They've just got this gut feel, and I ring them back and say, "Oh, are you okay?" And you know what? And it's that whole "are you okay" question, and it just all comes out, and you're so grateful that it came out. And it's intuition that does that.
Yeah, so strong. Wow. Oh my goodness. As usual, we have these amazing guests, Bav, and we could go on and on and on and on. So he's going to have to come back again.
Part 2, yeah, Tooth Club squared. Yeah.
Nearly season 2 is just going to be a repetition of everybody in season 1. It's just, let's go deeper. Let's talk more. I love
They'll
that.
start interviewing us.
That's it. Kunal, thank you so much for your time today, for your energy, your insights, your stories. I absolutely loved every minute.
We appreciate it. You're a busy man, and thanks for making time for us. But having 4 kids alone, forget the 17 practice, 18 odd practice, whatever it is, right? The 4 kids at home, and you said you had 2 dogs as well. One dog.
One.
God.
Yeah.
Thank you.
My Henry Shine rep gave me it. She's my dog mum.
Oh,
Did
really?
you?
Yeah. Oh, so cute.
Nice.
Oh.
Right.
Thank you, Kunal. Thanks again.
Thanks, mate.
Wow, Bav.
Yeah, I know. What a man.
I'm
The
just like, I'm
legend.
buzzing. What did you think? Give us your summary.
No, he epitomizes leadership, I think, and the fact that he has his story, has his purpose, he has his background where he's come from, and he's tried things outside of dentistry. And actually, I was thinking today, I think the majority of our guests have not been dentists, but they have been the most passionate people about dentistry. And Kunal, I think, sums that up because he is so passionate about dentistry and he gets it. He understands why we do what we do every day. And I think it's refreshing to see someone at the top, especially with a big corporate that's moving so fast, that understands it. And it isn't just about the numbers. It isn't just about using the cheapest materials and getting in people as quickly as possible. He's about the actual journey and the patient journey. And that's the most important thing, I think, in a practice and breeding that culture.
Yeah. So it comes down to just, again, he was saying that dentists don't get taught the leadership skills, clinician don't. Of course, as you know, we're on a mission to change that, aren't we?
And that's what we're there. We're going to make dentistry great again.
Yeah, because that's
I need to
exactly
get a hat of MAGA, not MAGA.
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 But it's exactly what they need, right? They need that leadership training, not just the boring old role play communication. They need the leadership training so they can come out and have the tools, not just to serve patients, but to live their lives fully, right? Back to lead better,
yourself.
live fully.
Exactly that. Laugh more. That's what it's all about. It's what it's all about.
Amazing. All right. Well, that's it for another episode of the Nail It podcast. We look forward to seeing you again. Do feel free to subscribe, tell all your friends, and let's all nail it together.
Guys, bye guys. Thanks for listening.
Bye for now.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Nail It podcast. We would love it if you would leave us a 5-star review. And if you'd like to feature as one of our guests or you're ready to nail it, then check out our events, programs and educational courses by visiting nailitindentistry.com.